So I'm used to having a podium usually. They say, so I kind of feel naked. They say, like, picture the audience naked. Right now I'm picturing myself naked. It's kind of sexy. Feels good.
Okay.
So I'm going to read mostly new poems today, and some of them might be hard to find. All right, here we go. Chant. A leaf wafting into solemn monophony, Gregorian chanting melody drifting here in the room. I want to lay down those parts of my heart that have died in the hollow of the copper beach and beseech the Queen Fairy to tell me what's next. It was hard shoving the splinter into my thumb so that I might carry it for luck into the world to come. Chants are intoned in unison, one note simultaneously. All singers enliven the same melody. If only Congress could attend with such discipline and intent. Someone's created a snow sculpture on the fence post, and it's melting in the sun while the red-faced warbler examines, voices his interpretation. And now the bird feeder's agog. I can feel the splinter throbbing. Kyria Elizan, Lord have mercy, they chant. So this is the title poem for my next book, at least the working title poem. And I was asked by an editor to contribute a poem. The North Carolina Museum of Art put together an anthology of ekphrastic poems, poems written after pieces of art from their permanent collection. And I was asked to provide one. And so this is my take on a wonderful painting, you can Google it if you like, called Night Wing over Metropolitan Area. And the artist's name is Yvonne Helene Jacquet. Wing of a blackbird, wing of a crow. If I seem a vulture sometimes, on the wing, adrift toward carrion, indistinct architecture of loss, its ambiance. The hydraulic whine and thud of the landing gear, absence of towers, moderate tremor of shear and turbulence. No, not buildings. Only insistent light that props them up, their corporeal bodies dissolved, enormous emptiness, which itself is full of color, ghosts of light beyond emptiness, that which defines them, that which looms outside the frame, space between us, the pregnant darkness of our city, and a million tiny votives that oppose. The night wing hangs, sags toward you with gravity, weight of 1,000 corpses, screech of a virus, that shrill hawk as I circle in a holding pattern, and all I can see is primary color, pointillism of what's left behind or flown toward, fugitive colors, especially the blue rims of your eyes. I lift or descend and it seems the same. Proximity may as well be absence. Arrival means another place has been left behind. And I'm taking off or landing to deliver what support I can. We are two dark birds together, keeping raptors at bay, there, out over the river. Superstition. Who has turned the jade elephant's head from the door? That won't do with a gunman still on the loose, herons flapping too close to the house. So I turned fire tongues for luck, cast table salt into flames. I spent the whole night pointing at the moon before I could fall asleep, creamy light shining on my face. But by morning, my OCD flared again. I tapped my forehead 3 times, rapped the door frame, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Mostly, I have it under control. Most of the time, I do it only once. When the 3rd heart attack killed my father, I knew it was a liar. I could finally let up. All that dread had no place, and the wound seemed to heal. My father died doing what he'd been told not to do. He fell to the snow he cleared from his car. He died on a mattress of snow. Not even the scar I'd scored into my chest with a silver crucifix had the power to save him. When the snow melted and dried, I swept dust from the spot into an envelope. Mom sold the house and moved away. Years later, I mixed that dust with flour and baked coarse bread. I put some on my tongue and let it dissolve. I swallowed with wine and waited, fixed the elephant's green head toward the door.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Bourbon, cigarettes, Van Morrison.
Yes. Oh. You're
Lake,
done.
Thank you. Lake Anna, Virginia. The winds picked up, rattling half-dead leaves, snapping off acorns that clattered through branches and thud to the ground. Wasps circled a screened-in porch, probed corners, and the sky's brief flirtation with blue has passed behind the gray shade drawn over the hills beyond the lake's far shore. Every now and then, a gust catches the ceiling fan's wicker paddles, and they turn, slowly. It's nearly too obvious. Autumn begins in beauty and ends with a cold rainstorm in late November, too dismal to mean anything else but winter. I'd forgotten how music can shift the body into depression like this, how memory clings like cigarette smoke to a damp sweater. And rain begins drilling at the roof. Van Morrison's given way to only that percussion. Whiskey's flame in my belly. My mother no longer speaks, but she grins horribly at the nursing home. Flicks spit those days when she fails to recognize me. The wasps have given up. Eventually, so does the rain.
Oh,
Passing. I've just received a text that says a buddy died last night, but that doctors brought him back to us with a shot. And so my friend is a Lazarus. I'm in a boathouse owned by another old pal. He's traveling for work somewhere abroad. Mallards have lifted from the vernal pond and thousands of frogs are singing because it's raining. I wish Bill was here so we could talk about our friend who is gone and returned. Crows call to each other across the lake. Same old story. There's danger and it surrounds us. And now the blue heron I'd failed to notice pulls his legs free of mud and flies away. A small falcon skims the shoreline. When he was raised, was Lazarus pleased? I wonder how he lived the rest of his unforeseen days. Were his preparations any different than they'd been before? It's early March, and Easter will be here soon. Jesus, too, realized how permeable the membrane is that keeps us this side of death, and that the dead can come back if they're summoned. The ducks, the hawk, and the heron have passed on through to somewhere else, but the joyful frogs remain crazy with song. A hunter's gunshots punctuate the distance. A single crow lands in the crook of a tree, and it seems as though the blessed rain has nearly stopped for now. First light. My old nemesis, the blue jay, flits. My old nemesis, the blue jay, flits down to bathe in the fake pool, the fake origin of the cool but fake waterfall. Fake, but hey, it helps on this hot July day. We all love to rest in gardens, which are only reclamations, human hands remaking Eden. The bird is washing away sin as I mope about my burdens. On coming home late from the bar, I'd strip near my mother's garden, pile the smoky clothes as lived in, stale gift at my parents' back door, before taking to bed, before Dad's creaking steps toward the bathroom. The Gospels differ on the tune, what Mary saw, whom she met. The jay's returned, his head turned west. Assume what you want to assume. The bird's neck swivels before he dips his beak down. The fake font gurgles, lifting an angel burst of blue into blue sky. The frog croaks amen. Here are a couple that are really new. To the Bone, Amherst, Virginia, 12122. The Blue Ridge Mountains are cobalt blue today, almost unnaturally so, wrapping around frozen distance. Such a beautiful obstacle, hazing this air with isopropene, giving the range its color, accounting for 1/3 of all hydrocarbons released into the atmosphere. It's hard to argue with the appropriateness of such blue in our time. A married pair of cardinals offer the only other hues against the drab gray, posted there in bare branches to bear witness, to whistle our story of mutual doom into the wind. Yesterday's slush cracks under my shoes, and my mother's ashes are stored on a shelf in New York, waiting. We are waiting together for the appropriate blue, convenient day, my sisters and I, to slide her into a Ferncliff mausoleum drawer next to our father, who's had to wait as well to lay with his wife next morning. This is the story as my own body begins humming its winter song. How cold it is outside, everything at the point of breaking. Current events. From the folding chair just inside the rolled up garage door, the moon a day from full this Good Friday, my view is scored by longleaf pine needles, impatient in the breeze. The stretched out limb of the Japanese magnolia alongside our driveway sags toward the top of my aging Toyota, lower each season. Even the blossoms seem to weigh it down. Later this year, maybe next, I'll have to saw it off. The world is wary, unsure of what's to come. Our children are awakened, but because we don't really trust them, we hover and call that salvation. Pass desperate bills and laws, waylay what's inevitable in the name of Jesus. So be it. This too is pealing bells lost in currents of time, each desperate pull of the rope hanging an awful burden by its neck. See it there, up in the branches? Something that looks human, kicking until it's only ghost nerves and evening wind. I stub out my cigarette. The stone is so heavy, we'll need a miracle to budge it. This comes from my stepson. It's called Your Daydreaming Child. Aren't you mad when the note comes home from school? You have a problem, child. Instead of finishing math or science, he's wasting time. Aren't you so damned angry that you yell and threaten, scream, why the hell can't you just pay attention? But your child is completely at attention, fully present, and dealing with the fear that his left arm is longer than his right. He's trying so hard to make them even. Under the desk, he's sticking himself with a pin, or struggling to force the tips of his index and middle fingers to line up. Try it yourself. Try to push your index finger forward out of its socket. Keep at it. If you manage, maybe it's true that an arm can be stretched into compliance. He knows the teacher's glaring at him, that the period is almost over, and so the period is almost over ritual kicks in. The spiral notebook's edge lined up with the rim of the desktop. 3 Ticonderoga pencils back to back, number 2s in their ovals, each eased 1/4 turn toward the wall clock to push along the minute hand. It's been going on like this for months. Now, and exactly 3 minutes before the bell goes off, he has to count the cursive letters of the alphabet taped above the chalkboard. A for apple, 1. B for balloon, 2. C for canary, 3. It is his own kind of math, but he can never get it to add up. It's the dreaded new math with which you both must now contend. You must open the book and learn it together. This is the 3-poem warning. Hummingbirds and eagles. The whir of hummingbird wings, first here, then fluttering over the pond, wall of pine, afternoon suns mirrored lazy flickering, and the place where, just last weekend, we watched an eagle stand with certainty on the bank before dipping into a long pool of water, before lifting over greenery and disappearing as eagles seem destined to do. Hummingbirds are cantankerous creatures at the feeder, taking time only to hover briefly, tiny bodies flapping under their riveted heads, bickering for position, fencing with long beaks, then thrusting them into the well. Sometimes we disappear, or so it seems, into the neuroses of hummingbirds. We want the nectar, that's all. And when it's gone, we apologize, my love, and fall into making up. We drink deeply of it, approach even the nobility of eagles. Hummingbird can fly backwards, sideways, hover up and down. They wear wedding clothes the rest of their lives. Fashioned from leftover feathers the gods used to create other birds, their long tongues bypass the bitter protection of flowers. They bring good luck, so we offer them succor. I hold the funnel in place while you pour sugar water, blood red, into the feeder. Steady me as I stretch from the footstool to hang it from a small hook under the eave. I step down into waiting arms. You sink your talons nearly to the bone. Tell me that you'll never leave. This one's for my wife, given that last poem. I'll read one that's a little nicer. Beth Garrett is here tonight, and Beth's husband, the late Franklin Johnson, a wonderful chef. I'll mention him again with the next poem, but he's the one who said, never cook with wine you wouldn't drink. The way to a man's heart for christening. To sauteed garlic and onions, I add pureed plum tomatoes, a great splash of good red wine. Never cook with wine you wouldn't drink, someone offered, and we agreed. I pour a glass. Later, I'll add coarsely chopped basil from the herb garden, sea salt, maybe a pinch of sugar, and always the drizzle of extra virgin. But now, as you see, this extended metaphor is dissolving, so I'm left with Pinot Noir in the glass, fresh basil sprigs which remind me of you. And now there's musing on the oil's earthy flavor, and now this aching hunger, and who is it who says, poetry makes nothing happen? I'm going to end up with a poem that I was insecure about, the subject matter. Some of you out there know that for 9 years I was Toni Morrison's personal assistant. The only reason I got that job was the aforementioned Franklin Johnson, who was Tony's caterer and friend, and I ended up bartending at a couple of Tony's parties, and later on I became her assistant for 9 years, so long story made short. And so Toni and I became friends, and when she died, I was really struck in a lot of ways by how important she really was in my life in a lot of ways. So this poem is for her and for Franklin and for Beth and for anyway, I was getting back to the point. I was uncomfortable with the subject matter, thinking, you know, these days you think, are you authorized to write about this thing, right? And rightfully so. So what I did was I went right to the top, and I'm lucky enough to have as a friend Natasha Trethewey, who won the Pulitzer Prize and two-time poet laureate of the United States. And I said, am I authorized to to use this material? And she said yes. So I think I'm on solid ground. So I'm going to end with this poem set in Hilton Head. The Toni Morrison Society has been doing this thing with Tony's blessing called Benches by the Side of the Road. There are a number of them through the country. One of them is in Hilton Head. One of them is in Nyack, New York, near where Toni lived for much of her life. So this is called Mitchellville, South Carolina. In memoriam, Toni Morrison, 2/18/31, 8/5/2019. In my head, I can't help but hear the stomp and shuffle, clap in joy of Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. Draped over live oak limbs, Spanish moss resembles the gray beards of elders. Its resilience, how it assimilates nutrients solely from air, trapping water and particulates, silver garland tossing its seed to the wind to survive. For the Mitchellville freedmen, perhaps it offered solace as they stepped from the praise house. Fatigue and holiness, emergent joy, only such dedication to purpose can conjure. Ghost notes sound the morning mist. The salt marsh surrounds Fish Hall Creek just below Port Royal Mansion. Just below Port Royal Plantation, where contrabands would be enslaved. Tony, from your bench by the road, I look out over marsh grass, gray span of water in the distance, almost indistinguishable from sky but for one thin band of pale blue, and therein the dark outline of a passing kayaker. I envision him, one of the chosen, casting a hand-fashioned net from his bateau, the process unchanged from biblical times, skill passed from grandfathers and fathers, each net begun with 36 eyes tied together with 18,000 knots, 200 hours of labor to create meshwork with a 5-foot circumference. Some slaves escaped into the confusion of the Battle of Port Royal Sound. Others were just left behind. As in the aftermath of a hurricane, their owners later returned to see what property could be salvaged after naval ships and guns disappeared. In the end, it wasn't much of a fight. Each 12 by 12 shotgun house had its quarter acre for farming greens and sweet potatoes. Tony, there's something in the tortured limbs of older trees that have withstood too many storms. The last time I sat here only 2 years ago, this bench seemed not so weathered. Now it appears tethered between spirit and flesh, shackles and levitation. Groups of vacationers, all white and COVID distance, stroll by to visit by the end of the dock. I don't think they know what this is. Beloved, there was a window, 10 minutes maybe, when it was all silence. Soon elders appeared, faint clapping, stomp and shuffle, counterclockwise circles, song and praise, haunted chants the prayer house can't hold. They ringed the building, traversing time, turning to pure spirit before me. They lifted as one toward the ether, and even Jesus there to usher toward hush, the rarely seen clapper rail, calling, riding this cloudy sky. Thank you.